Welcome to Physics World. In this world, you're going to go through 3 experiments to determine the speed that you walk in Minecraft, ride in a minecart in Minecraft, and swim in Minecraft. So the way you're going to do that is there are 3 tracks for each group or each person doing the experiments, and you will use carpet on the walking track, buttons on the riding track, and water lilies on the swimming track. What you're going to do is you're going to use a metronome to record your time, and you're going to, as the metronome ticks, you're going to place either carpet or buttons or water lilies, and you're going to use those positions to create a table of data of position versus time, and then you'll create a graph. From the graph, you'll fit a line to your data, and the slope of that line will be the velocity. And you'll see more as we go further on in this video. So Izzy and Carlton are your tour guides, and they provide some information. So they are telling you the same thing that I just told you. There's a metronome link, so you can go and open up the metronome that you'll need, and then there's a link to this video. And so you're going to go down here to these station masters, just tell you to go and over to a station so that you can complete your lesson. We're going to go to station 3, and we teleported right to our spot. So we have a walking track right here. We're going to start with the walking track. We have a riding track, and we have a swimming track over here. So we're going to start with our walking track. So we need to go over here, and we need to, it says take carpet to record your position. So I can right click to get, and you can see I got some more carpet. I also had some in my inventory, so I'm going to make sure to select carpet, the black carpet, and I'm going to use that as my indication of position. So I'm getting set up here to go on my track, but the first thing I need to do is start my metronome. So I'm going to go over here. I have my metronome link up. I'm going to click it. So notice it's 60 beats per minute, which means the metronome is ticking every second. So I'm going to have every second, so I'm going to start with 0 seconds, 1, 2, 3, and those are going to be my time values. Just going to set my values here so I'm able to place, and I'm going to start walking by just pressing W, and I'm going to right click in order to place the carpet. I think I have enough data, so I'm going to go back and start with my 0 time. So that first click that I made, I'm going to call that my 0 time and my first position. So my first data set, data coordinates. So this right here is my first point. So let's figure out what that is. If this is my origin, I can see by the sign here. So this is my 0. So I'm behind the origin. So I'm going to say this is negative. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my first position is going to be at negative 9. So I've got negative 9 here. Now if I look back, my second position here was at negative 4, and I can see that on my data. I took this data before, so this is the data on the left over here that I gathered. And so you're going to gather your own data from this, and I would just collect all this data and then put it in my table. So notice, looking at this table, I created a table in Google Sheets, and so I have my time. So I started with my 0, and then each time value increases by 1. So 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, up to 8 seconds. You'll probably have more data than that, and these are each of the positions relative to the origin. And so if I want to plot this, I can take my data. So I selected it all, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is select my data, so for walking, and do Insert Chart. And here I'm going to look at my chart editor, and I'm going to select Scatter. I'm going to select a scatter plot. And so what this shows me is my position. I started at negative 9, so this makes sense, right? And I increased with time. This was about negative 4. That makes sense. This looks like around 2. And up we go. And so I want to customize my plot. So I'm going to add a title. So I'm going to add the chart title first. And I'm going to call this position versus time for walking. And I'm going to add a horizontal axis title, and I'm going to call this time in seconds. And I'm going to select my vertical axis. I'm going to call this position in blocks. And I know each block is a meter, so I'm going to say it's in meters. So now I've got that information. I'm going to go to series here. So series just means my data points. And I'm going to add a trend line. So this will help me to figure out my slope of the line. So this is the best fit line for my data. And I can scroll down here to add in a label. And the label I want is an equation. So what this is the equation of my line. And this is of the same form as y equals mx plus b. And so y on our graph is position, and x is on the horizontal axis is time. So what my slope is position versus time. And if I think about my slope, it's rise. So the rise is position, and the run is time. So I have meters over seconds, and that's a velocity. So the 4.95 is really m, y equals mx plus b. So my slope, or my velocity, is 4.95 meters per second. So I figured out how fast I walk in Minecraft. And you want to figure out, this was just some example data that I put together, you want to figure it out what it is for you. And so now I'm going to go back, close this, go back over here, let me make this big. I'm going to try this now for riding on the minecart. So I'm going to need some buttons. So I can take the buttons here from the chest. I just right click on the chest and get some more buttons. You can see I've done this already. I'm going to go over here I'm going to right click to get into the minecart. So I'm in the minecart. To get started, I press W. But first I want to set my pointer to be on the wall on this first row. I want to select buttons. So I just selected buttons on my toolbar. And I'm going to leave my pointer right there and just press W and then right click with each metronome tick. So here I go. Okay, so I've got all my data, and one of the things that I should tell you is when you get down to the other end, make sure you count how many times the metronome clicks, because you're going to need that data in your table. So I'm going to get out by pressing Shift, and I should now be able to climb out. I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm going to minimize this and look at these. This is some sample data that I have from an earlier run. So this is my time, my first time value, and this is the first position was -12, so I was before the origin, so that's a negative number, right? And if I want to plot this to see what it looks like, I'm just going to do Insert, Chart again. I'm going to pick my chart type to be scatter. And so this is interesting. So this shows me, this is position versus time. I haven't given it labels yet, but I'll leave you to do that. But notice I start at a position that's before 0. That makes sense. And then I increase up until I get to about, I think it's 55 or so. And this is where I stopped for a few seconds. So it's obviously 3 seconds here. I stopped at position 55 at the other end to allow myself to turn around. And I head back and notice that my values decrease. They don't increase. If I want to, so this tells me what it looks like, right? That this shows you the story of my ride. Now, what if I wanted to find the velocity? What I can do is I can move this out of the way and just select part of the data. So I'm just going to go up to the first, just from 0 to 9 seconds, or just for the track where I'm heading down the track. So I can go to Chart. I can select Chart Type. And again, I'm going to select Scatter. Now if I want to, I can customize, and I can look at my series, add a trend line. I can add my label, use an equation. And so again, this is y equals mx plus b. This line represents my data, and so this tells me that my velocity is 7.82 seconds. So it's going faster, which I would expect. And if I wanted to figure out if my speed is faster going the other way, I could select this data and create another graph and fit the data and look at that speed to see. It's interesting when you do that. If I do this again, select scatter, I customize, and I select series, trend line, and if I look at my label and use equation, I get a similar value, but now it's negative. And that makes sense because now my slope is a negative slope. It's decreasing. So as I'm increasing in time, my position is decreasing. And so that means I'm going in the opposite direction. And that's showing me that I have a negative velocity because I'm going in the opposite direction. So you're going to do the same thing for your data, and I'm going to leave swimming to you. The one thing I want to show you in swimming, I'm not going to go through the data, but I'd like to show you how you should do your swimming experiment. So you'll have to pick up some water lilies, and I have them at location 3 on my toolbar. So you're going to get in the water, right? And you're going to head backwards by pressing S. And as you go backwards, you're going to right-click so that you can place water lilies on top of the water. And now you can go back and collect the data just like we did for the other experiments, and then enter it in over here in your graph and determine the speed of swimming in Minecraft. I hope you enjoyed the experiment, and good luck with determining your speeds in Minecraft.